Hello learners, welcome to this session. The topic for discussion in this session is human computer interface development and its applications. So earlier in our sessions we had seen the introduction to human computer interaction, the applications and principles of design of human computer interaction. So in this session let us see the evolution of human computer interaction. I am Professor V. V. Subramaniam, Director, School of Computer and Information Sciences, IGNOU, New Delhi. So every day we interact with hundreds of things that share a common thread. They depend on interface. So wake in the morning and slide a switch to turn off the alarm, twist a doorknob to leave the bedroom, rotate the shower faucet, switch on the coffee maker, press a remote control button to watch the morning news and many more. For each and every kind of thing we require a interface. So your day is filled with countless interfaces. Some are intuitive and we hardly give them a thought, while others are taxing and annoying also. So we may be uncomfortable with most of the interfaces because of their design and because of their ease to use. Successful interactions depend on the interface that controls the device. So let us see the interfaces evolution in computers. The advent of the computer necessitated a user interface. Without the user interface, we can't even communicate with the computer, not only the computer, any device. So some decades ago, computing power were expensive and programming focused on optimal designs rather than the user interface. So most of the times they developed the systems, but they haven't concentrated on the user interface design. So later on they give a big thought to the user interface design also. These days we are using the latest user interface designs, feeling the great user experience. Punch cards and line printers were common those days, but hardly the things that we dream of when we think of these user interfaces. It took decades for computer screens, keyboards and mouse to evolve. We now have the world of smartphones and voice assistants and the promise of their help to get us through our day. With future user interfaces, even grander things are in store. So with this particular little background, let us start how these interfaces were developed, right from the punch card to the touch screen and other kinds of like user interfaces that we are using today. So when we think of the punch card, even most of the people we don't have the we haven't seen the punch cards. However, I'll show you a simple figure which I had downloaded from the net. So when electronic computing arrived, they leveraged early user interfaces such as paper punch cards and teletypewriters. So these were the two things that they were using at the start. So those were the paper punch cards and the teletypewriters. The earliest use of punch cards were in Jacquard loom of 1804. So the loom's user interface consists of a loop of cards to weave patterns, with each card controlling individual ants in one row of the pattern. So this is how it looks like. This is the original photograph of the Jacquard loom of 1804. You can see how this particular loom, that too it is a kind of rotatory machine, and the patterns were designed, and this is how they used to interact with the computer. Another kind of punched cards came into existence. Those were called as the punched holes card. Each tabulation equipment, a precursor to the computer, was created by Hermann Hollerith to help process the 1890 US census. So there he has used a kind of concept called as the punched hole card. His company made a machine that could punch 12 holes in 24 card columns. You can see here 12 holes in 24 card columns, like this one on the slide that I am going to show you, and another machine that collected the data represented by those holes. So Hollerith's company became International Business Machines in 1924, and this company we are calling it as IBM today. So punched holes gave a way to rectangles to get more data on a card and changed its dimensions to the size of an old dollar bill. So earlier it was holes and later on it was changed to a rectangles punched onto the card. Early computers such as ENIAC used punch cards as their sole user interface, not only for system input but also for output by printing upper case letters and numbers across the top of the card. They were no longer the lowercase. Those days they were not using the lowercase. However, in the ENIAC machine he was using the uppercase letters. So you can see here, this is the figure, Holy Writ's punched hole card. So you have these holes punched on the card, and later on these holes are being turned into a kind of rectangles where in which more data or more thing is like stored onto the whole card. So next came the IBM model 029. So in this particular machine, programmers used a rigid user interface to work with these early computers, communicating through punch cards in languages like COBOL and Fortran. So those days these two languages are very much popular. One was used for the business transactions like the business programming, common oriented business language, and then the other one is the Fortran, formula translation. So these were two languages which were popular those days, and they used to do the programming of COBOL and Fortran using the these punch cards. The cards were prepared with key punch machines like 1964 IBM model 029. So first of all they have to prepare the punch card, and later on they have to give that one as the interface to the machine, or else you can call that program punched onto the card and later on submitted to the machine. So the machines were tools of the trade if you wanted to get a program or data into the computer. So everything needs to be key punched, and later on it needs to be given as the input to the system. So you can see here the photograph of the IBM model 029. So the cards, how they were prepared, and then there is a slot over there, the card you are creating goes here, and then after creating the card it is removed and it is been fed into the machine. So later on the next interface that came into existence is the keyboard. So while keyboards were required for punch cards, they really became common when the PC burst on the scene in the early 1980s. So this particular keyboard was very much popular during 1980s. So earlier we used to have the telewriters in order to punch the cards and other kinds of things, but however from 1980 onwards when the boom came, like PCs were made as a simple desktop, then from that particular instance onwards these keyboards were used. So the keyboards that we are using right now are the latest one, but we used to have a older version of the keyboards, and users back then used a MS-DOS command line interface. Like you can see, each and every command needs to be remembered, it needs to be given against the prompt, and then the required command will be executed in order to get the output. Coming in all shapes and sizes, the keyboard user interface used dedicated trace circuits that touched with a key press. Each key is mapped onto a matrix where each intersection had a unique binary code. So that was the logic that they were following, and you can see here the keyboard microprocessor, and this keyboard microprocessor shown here scans the matrix and sends the appropriate hexadecimal scanned code through the keyboard connector or USB port to the motherboard. So this is kind of chip that is attached over here, and it acts as an interface to the system, like a keyboard and to the actual system. So later on another good device came, the input device, that is the mouse. So few user interface innovations have had more impact on human computer interaction than the computer mouse, a pointing device that helped launch the desktop metaphor. So currently we were using the keyboards, wired mouses as well as the Bluetooth mouses also. So while working at Xerox PARC in 1964, Douglas Engelbart built the mouse from a piece of wood. So first device was not of this plastic or something like that, but they had prepared this mouse using a piece of wood and with two metal wheels that moved when they rolled on a surface. So this was the like first mouse that was created, that too during 1964. 8 years later, the idea was tweaked to use a rubber ball in the mouse instead of the wheels. Earlier they used to have the wheels and other kinds of things in order to move, in order to position the mouse, in order to position the pointer on the screen. They used to have the wheels, small wheels attached with the like wooden mouse, but later on it has been transformed into a kind of ball which we are even currently experiencing. It was also made ergonomic, like this was a very good invention, you can say, because after the invention of this mouse only, we will be able to like point the device at any like at any pixel or else at any coordinate on the monitor. So this is the wooden like mouse that was designed by Douglas. You can see here a small piece of wood with like wheels, small wheels positioned in order to position this particular mouse pointer. He used the wheels concept. And then later on there were advancement in the mouse also. Around 1980, the mechanical ball was replaced by an optical sensor. Even now also we can experience there are many mice like we are not using any kind of plastic ball inside. However, we are using some optical sensors. You can see the red light blinking under the mouse. So that particular red LED reflected off a flat surface back to the mouse's photocell. So mouse movement changes the pattern of light that the photocell receives, and it is converted into X and Y coordinates. So mouse also have a wheel on the top to change the X and Y coordinates and buttons that send a selection signal to the controller. So we have a left mouse button, right mouse button, or else on the top of the mouse we can find a small wheel also, wherein which we can scroll upwards or else downwards. So these are the advancements in the mice that we are experiencing right now. There are many types of mouse such as wired, wireless, and all sorts of button arrangements. And then later on there is another shift from mouse to the touch screen. So this particular touch screen concept was developed in 1965 by Eric Johnson of England's Royal Radar Establishment. His user interface consisted of copper wires attached to the bottom of the screen. So this was a kind of arrangement wherein which it helps him to play the touch screen kind of experience. So used primarily to select a specific range of choices using the alphanumeric 0 to 9 and A to Z, a user touched a labeled part of a display screen. So the underlying software translated the XY coordinates of the pressed wire into the user's selection. In the case of Mr. Johnson and radar systems, aircraft had 3-letter designations, so it was an effective way for an air traffic controller to select a specific flight. So this particular arrangement he has done it for the radar kinds of systems or else for the flight controlling kind of flight selection kind of things. However, later on this particular touch screen is very much took like part in like ATMs, mobile phones, even on laptops, desktops, etc. So this is the touch screen concept that Eric Johnson was using for his radar system. You can see here this was the oldest kind of concept wherein which he used it for the flight selection. Then some touch screens user interfaces later adopted infrared light emitters and transducers embedded in a computer screen bezel, and they could interpret a finger blocking a light wave as it touched the screen, such as with the 1983 HP 150 PC. Housed in tiny holes alongside the screen as shown by the red and blue highlighted area, a finger touch is communicated to the underlying MS-DOS program, and as the XY coordinates, horizontal and vertical location of where the point is being pointed to. So there was another kind of interface design called as the natural user interface. So this is very much near to the like nature, or else you can say that the natural kind of things happening with the user interfaces. Earlier it was the graphical user interfaces, wherein which we used to have the icons, we used to have several graphical user elements like the text bars, text boxes, the command button, the label, and then the scrollers, the bars. So these were the graphical user interfaces that were using in Windows operating system and many operating systems, and we thought that this was a greater invention that like after the systems were developed. However, with this natural user interface, this particular touch screen has been targeted for the smartphones like ATMs, smartphones, tablets. Nowadays, these are using the natural user interface. This is nothing but this natural interface is very much near to the touch screen kind of concept, wherein which directly you can place your finger and then you can like swipe the finger in order to get the required output. A more natural user interface, which is in short called as NUI, can be accomplished through multi-touch technology also. When you see your mobile phones, not only one finger in order to enlarge the photograph or in order to enlarge the picture, even you will placing 2 or 3 fingers also, or else in order to position that particular image onto your mobile phone screen also, you will be using multi-touch technology. So this multi-touch leverages 2 or more screen touch points in contrast to a mouse, which handles a single point on the screen interaction. So earlier in the mouse we had seen that XY, that is the coordinates of selecting onto the like monitor and other kinds of things. We used to have only a kind of single point which we used to like which the mouse used to recognize. However, after the invention of this particular natural user interface technique, you can have the multi-touch leveraging 2 or more screen touch points at the same point of time. While a mouse is ingrained into our lives, controlling a single point with our multi-jointed hand may limit productivity. So the idea behind multi-touch is very simple. It allows us to convey more information to the computer in a shorter time and in a more natural way. So multi-touch will not be 10 times faster using a mouse. That is a myth. Just like typing with 10 fingers is not 10 times faster than using a single finger, but depending on the user interface, we can increase productivity and have a higher rate of information input. So that is the like actual logic behind this multi-touch. So the best example that we can provide for the natural user interface is the iPhone. The iPhone is a natural user interface device with both a good and bad multi-touch user interface. Some iPhone gestures are natural, like swiping from left to right with your finger, and turn a page resembles how you would turn a page of a book. That also we are currently experiencing. Others are far less obvious and require learning, such as taking an iPhone screenshot as shown to the left, which requires the multi-touch of your right hand on the power button while your left hand presses the home button before releasing them both. So this iPhone, as we can see, it is this particular device is having the natural user interface, and right now there are several devices, several phones and several tablets coming with the natural user interface with multi-touch approach. So there are 2 types of touch screens. Earlier we used to have the captive, and currently we are experiencing the resistive touch screens. Sometimes both are existing, as we can see in the due course of time. The basic data types of natural user interface touch screens in use today are one the captive and the other is the resistive touch screen. So the 2007 iPhone, when you had seen like 13 years back, the touchscreen desktops are those were the examples of the captive devices that use your fingertips skin as the conductor. So that was the technology that was used in 2007 when the iPhone was released. These surfaces use coordinate grids of embedded electrodes, and touching it completes a kind of circuit. So an iPhone microcontroller passes the coordinates and other gesture interpretations to the iOS operating system and ultimately to the running app. A major capacitive drawback occurs in winter or in industrial scenarios where you are wearing non-conductive gloves, then it won't work. An iPhone's conductive touchscreen would not work over here. So, they had come out with a next technology, that is the resistive touchscreen technology. So, this resistive touchscreen, sometimes called as pressure sensitive screens, use the pressure of a stylus or a pointed object to compress a flexible conducting plastic against conducting glass separated by a membrane. So, an ATM touchscreen, if you experience, may be resistive, given they can be found outdoors and used in winter time also. So, some screens blend capacitive and resistive approaches, both the things are possible. Either method senses the electrical change, allowing the software to indicate cursor movement or a press movement. In many ways, this technology borrows heavily from the computer mouse itself. So, later on we had experienced another kind of human computer interaction through the touchpad and the track point. So, sharing some touchscreen properties, most natural user interface laptop touchpads use capacitive to track finger movement. As you had seen, a rectangular kind of space will be available in order to move the cursor in a laptop. So, that particular rectangular part wherein which we touch with the finger in order to move the pointer is called as the touchpad interface. And from an user perspective, a pad is like a mouse, but with a smaller working area. You can see there is no infinite area that is available. The rectangle space that is available just below the keypad in any laptop, that is the only space that we were using in order to make available of the touchpad. So, they use physical left and right mouse buttons or simulate buttons with a tap on the pad. We may tap, we can press the left button, we can press the right button, we can drag, we can drop, or else we can double click in order to activate the application. So, these are the operations that we were using in using the touchpad. So, along with this touchpad, some pads have a scroll area to the side to simulate a mouse wheel. Modern pads use a matrix of conductors below its surface separated by an insulator and a grid at right angles on the top. A finger touch changes the capacitance. So, laptops can also have a pointing stick, a small thing that a red one on the IBM's ThinkPad. If you take the case of IBM ThinkPad, it consists of a small device, a pointing stick, and then towards the left of the laptop. So, situated between the keys, it behaves just like a joystick and appears to a program as a mouse. So, many of the laptops, if you can see in between the keys, the actual keyboard that we have on the laptops, in between that particular keyboard, we have a small pointing stick. If you can kindly observe your laptops. So, nowadays most of the laptops are carrying these particular pointing sticks, and this will act as a kind of interface, or else you can call it as a joystick kind of interface. So, later on this a natural user interface is being transformed into a kind of thing called as the voice user interface. So, the purpose of speech recognition and a voice user interface is to support and enhance the interaction between the man and machine without touching any keyboard, without swiping with a finger. With the help of our own voice, we can control the system also. So, these are the present kind of interfaces that we are using in many devices. It has become an almost natural and intuitive form of a human machine interaction. If you can see the kind of search engine that we have, for example, the Google. So, Google also provides this voice recognition. So, when we press a simple button called as the voice recognition button, and when we speak, automatically the pattern will be typed onto the text box that it is having, and then with a single this one we can search the information that we are intent to. And using this particular voice recognition, we are not even placing any finger or any kind of typing or keying into the machine. However, with the voice control itself, we are able to search the internet in order to get the required pattern. So these days we can talk to our cars also, smartphones, banking applications and many more. So if you can see nowadays on many banking websites, you have the voice chatbots. Like this particular voice chatbots, whenever you want to have some help kind of thing or inquiry kind of thing, obviously you have to place the voice message, so that immediately with the help of the artificial intelligence, whatever that you are asking for, if it is available, then automatically it will be displayed onto the screen. So these kinds of voice based chatbots, voice based commands, or else talking to our cars with our own voice, talking to the smartphones, or else searching the patterns that we want on the search engines. So these are some of the examples that we can quote for the voice user interface. We can talk faster than we type and convey our emotions in very conversational manner. So even if you see, there are several assistants in the form of apps, those are coming nowadays, wherein which directly they are capturing the human voice, and whatever the thing that we intends to do with the app is able to function in the way that the human intends to give the message. A voice user interface leverages natural language to take the man machine interface one step closer to the goal of being seamless. Like you can see the help assistants, like AI help assistants like Alexa, Siri. So these are all based upon the voice recognition they are functioning. So they are the devices wherein which they are helping and connecting to the internet, and through voice itself they are able to converse with the humans. So we are giving the input also through the human voice, and the output that we are getting is also through the human the voice itself. So there are several websites we can talk about, wherein which we have the voice recognition software embedded, wherein which it helps the customers to talk, or else to talk to the application, and whatever that the user intends to do, that they are doing it using the voice itself. So apart from this particular voice user interfaces, there are several advancements that are happening in the human computer interaction. So in this particular session, before conclusion, let us see what we have learned. So we have learned the complete evolution of the human computer interaction. Right from the punch card, we had seen the evolution taking place till the voice user interfaces. So in the next class, we will be focusing on the more advancements in the human computer interaction. With this, I conclude the session. Thank you. Happy learning.